Hi everyone. So I said I was going to make a quick little video about the 5 Dramione fanfics that I also read this month. I really read a lot this month considering I also read all those other books I talked about in my previous video. But let's get into some Dramione. In case you are thinking about reading some Dramione, I will give you the 5 that I read and tell you what they're about. There is a rule in fanfic that we're not rating these because these are gifts given to us by somebody that is not making money for this, is not a published, author with like an agent and all that. So we don't say like this is good or this is bad. I'm just going to tell you what they're about, and I really enjoyed all of them. So there's no shade at all. The first one that I mentioned in the other video that I read is Bad Omens, and it's by an author called One Bed to Rule Them All. This was the funniest, not only Dramione that I've read, but probably the funniest book I can remember reading in a long time. It was hilarious. It is based on Good Omens. So if you've read Good Omens or you've watched the show, you will like this because it follows this. Basically, the premise is that there's a prophecy that there's an 11-year-old kid that's going to like summon demons and bring them into the world and destroy the world. And Draco and Hermione they both she works for the Ministry of Magic and he works for like the Prime Minister of like Muggle England. As like their magic consultant. I don't know. It was a little confusing, but they work together to like solve problems between the wizard and Muggle world, and they get saddled with this prophecy and they realize that they're going to have to do something about it. And so they go looking for this kid. They have to like adopt this kid, and there's of course a lot of hijinks, and if you've seen Good Omens, you know that there's like mess ups and things like that. But there's 2 children involved. The 2 children involved have my whole heart. They were both so funny, so well written. Just everything about them, perfection. And then also this book also features a Panville. So it features Pansy Parkinson is actually the one that made the prophecy, and she is kind of like falling apart in her life. And so she goes out to this town where these kids are from, and she happens to run into Neville, and he's sort of so sweet. Oh my God. And he helps her try to figure out what she's supposed to be doing with the prophecy. So like they're working on it separately from Draco and Hermione. And the kids also have their own scheme. And Draco and Hermione in this book are absolute idiots, as they always are. They're like completely contentious. They will not admit their feelings. They're like almost destroying everyone else's life for how much everybody's just like, oh my God, please just admit your feelings. But it's very hot and it's very funny, and I really, really recommend this one. If you would like a short one that is spicy, I recommend Blackmailed by Mistress Lynn. This is a story that happens before the war, sort of. It's like Harry and Ron have gone off to try and find the Horcruxes, and Hermione decides to stay at Hogwarts because she feels like that's where she can do the research to figure out where the Horcruxes are, but she gets saddled into being the head girl, and Draco is being saddled into being the head boy. And so they have to like live in a common dorm with each other. And she is really afraid that he's spying on her. She doesn't trust him, obviously. So one night she realizes that her notebooks and all of her notes are missing. It turns out that he stole them. So he kind of offers her this deal of like, we can have one night together and I'll give you this back. Which sounds like kind of a silly premise, but this book had so much going on. This book was full of emotion. I actually cried at the end. I did not think I would because it's only like 125 pages and like 60 of it were like their night together, if you know what I mean. Right after like their spicy night together, they realize that like they have real feelings for each other and that she wants to save him, and it becomes this like so good, so emotionally angsty. I mean, really, really, really top notch. In a good way that made me kind of think differently about Draco in the series, and kind of imagining that this night actually did happen between them, because it kind of makes the rest of the series like, anyway. Next up was 10 out of 10, which was by Morrigan Mercy. This is a marriage law one, which is like another trope in the Dramione world where the Ministry of Magic is like forcing people to get married because there's a shortage of wizards, and so they're trying to get people to procreate, I guess Handmaid's Tale style, but it's like not as bad. They're just forcing you into marriage. That they find people whose magic is compatible, and it ends up being Draco and Hermione. Kingsley Shacklebolt makes them get married. He marries them, and then they have like 2 weeks before they have to start like trying to have children. And obviously like she is completely repulsed by him. She spends like days trying to like research a loophole out of this. but they are obviously forced proximity. They're living in her house, which is in like Muggle London. And I don't know, it's very sweet. She has like a neighbor girl that kind of like gets involved in their little relationship. And, you know, this is definitely a he fell first. You can see that he's sort of falling for her. It was really sweet. It was spicy. You know, the spice in this one was like, okay, because I was really like more interested in like their falling in love with each other, which was really, really sweet. So I recommend that one. And also it wasn't that long. Next up, I read two by the same author, Scully Murphy. The first one was Teach Me to Forget. And the premise of this one is that Hermione is going for a promotion and she needs like a dueling certificate, or she needs to like work on dueling. So she goes to like adult education classes, you know, like at like the annex, like, and she realizes that Draco is her teacher. And she obviously is like a little upset by this because nobody really knows like where his head is at, but she finds him very attractive, of course. He finds her attractive. Again, they're idiots. They like go for a long time without saying how they feel. But this one was really, really sweet. She really begins to admire him because he's smart, he's a good dueler, he's a good teacher, and she sees him as this equal to her. And he, of course, you know, is falling for her too, which is just, it's very sweet. They have these great little moments in there. Yeah, I really like that one. It was good. And finally, the other book by Scully Murphy was called Universal Truths. And I read this one because it is an update of Pride and Prejudice. And I love Pride and Prejudice. And I really liked this. I thought this was really, really clever. She did a really good job connecting the characters. So instead of like Jane and Mr. Bingley, it's Harry trying to get sponsors and people to invest in like a Quidditch club that he's trying to do. And so Theo and Draco are kind of involved. Theo is, I guess, like the Mr. Bingley character and Harry's the Jane character. There's some antics and confusion there. There's also a Wickham character who's not somebody from the original story, but he kind of like fits in fine and makes sense. I won't tell you who Lydia is because if you want to read this, it kind of came as like a, oh no. But also Draco has like a ward, which is Astoria Greengrass. Sometimes she is different ages, but this author made her into like a ward, Draco's ward. So she's sort of like his Georgiana. We get Draco's aunt, Aunt Lucretia, who's sort of, I thought she would be Lady Catherine, but she wasn't. She was more involved in like a good way. It was very sweet. They had a very good connection. The author did a good job making them have like real conversations and getting to know each other. And there's not a lot of like idiotness in this one because they kind of admit how they're feeling right away. But then of course, as in Pride and Prejudice, there's some things that happen that make it kind of tricky. I also appreciated that this author, you could tell she's really into music, so there's a lot of music stuff in there. She made playlists to go along with this. She has Pinterest boards to go along with it, so you could kind of like see in every chapter like what she was imagining, which was kind of cool. So I do recommend that one, especially if you like Pride and Prejudice. And that is all. Please let me know if you read any of these, what you think, and if you have other recommendations for me, because I can't stop reading Dramione. It's getting to be a problem. Okay.